Unit 1. Supply Chain Design. Let's start talking about value chain. Value chain and logistics concepts. People use different names for these chains of activities and organizations. When they emphasize the value added, they call it a value chain. The concept of value chain refers, on one hand, to the concept of an economic path, allowing tracking the product from the raw material source through an economic links to the final user or to the organizational value analysis. Every sector is a link in the value chain of the economy, and within every sector, every company is an element of a chain consisting of suppliers, the enterprise, and its customers. Every company is an element of the broader value chain, but it also creates an identical internal value chain. Then, value chain is referred to a series of interrelated business processes that create and add value for customers. Its intent is to disaggregate all of firms' business processes into discrete activities to evaluate their level of contribution to the firm's value and then discern value-adding activities from non-value-adding activities. Herein, value is the amount buyers are willing to pay for what a firm provides them, and thus is measured by total revenue, a reflection on the price a firm's product commands and the units it can sell. Then, the extent of value created and added by the firm often dictates its level of business success, because the higher the value, the greater the profit margin and competitive advantages. The value chain focuses on the customer's value by connecting the customer's needs to every aspect of the value adding a business, activities encompassing sourcing, manufacturing, logistics, and marketing across the organizational boundary. The value chain is often driven by four key imperatives. First, reduce uncertainty, which minimizes assets intensity through the reduction and elimination of inventory. 2. Increase speed, which minimizes the risk of obsolescence. 3. Increase revenue resulting from the maximization of customization and the subsequent customer loyalty. And last one is increased productivity through multiple asset productivity. Now, let's talk about logistics. Logistics operations have always been accompanying life in human societies. Although the scope of the term logistics as a word will change over time, the most probably origin is Greek, which is indicated by the meaning of words such as logos, counting or reason, logistics, the art of calculation, logismos, calculation, calculus, reflection, etc. They are also the source of the concept of logistic, which is the French meaning for transport, accommodation, and supply of troops, as well as the origin of the English word logistics in its military sense. So, some authors believe that the pedigree of logistic is of military nature, as shown by all the theories dealing with this area, although the literature also provides information about the role of the concept in the civilian sphere. For example, in the 5th century before Christ, in ancient Greece, logistics was originally associated with the civilian life. In the context of Greek administration, finances, and the economy of that time, one may come across different names or performance functions, such as logistae, logeutai, eglogeis. I don't know how to pronounce Greek, I'm sorry, but something like that, to which particular ranges of responsibilities and tasks were assigned. If we want to put this in simple words, logistics is the flow of material, information, and money between consumers and suppliers. Okay? Logistics management, as an earlier and limited version of a supply chain management until beginning of 2000, covers the physical process of planning, organizing, and controlling the flow of materials and services from the supplier's points to the customers at the end point. In addition to these aspects, the concept of supply chain management is now including customer satisfaction, customer relations, financial flow, and information flow by making logistic functions a more integrated and complex group of activities. Therefore, logistics support and the interaction of the logistics and supply management with local and global trade cannot be disregarded. So we can now conclude that logistics is the process of strategically managing the procurement, movement, and storage of materials, parts, and finished inventory, and all the related information flows, remember, flows, through the organization and its marketing channels in such a way that current and future profitability profitability, are maximized through the cost-effective fulfillment of orders. Don't forget that ultimately the mission of logistics management is to serve customers in the most cost-effective way. Value chain phases. There are three value chain phases: creating value, delivering value, and communicating value. By creating value, we would talk that price is the only marketing element that produces revenue, right? The others produce cost. Pricing decisions can become more challenging in a changing economic and technological environment. When setting a pricing policy, a company follows a 6 steps procedure. It selects its pricing objective, it estimates the demand curve, the probable quantities it will sell at each possible price. It estimates how its costs vary at different levels of output, at different levels of accumulated production experience, and for differentiated marketing offers. It examines competitors' costs, prices, and offers, and it selects a pricing method and it selects the final price. Then, companies usually set a pricing structure that reflects variations in geographical demand and the costs, market segment requirements, purchase timing, order levels, and other factors. Several price adaptation strategies are available, like geographical pricing, price discounts and allowances, promotional pricing, and discriminatory pricing. A price decrease may be brought about by the excess plant capacity, declining market share, a desire to dominate the market through lower costs or economic recession. A price increase may be brought about by cost inflation or overdemand. Companies must carefully manage customer perceptions when raising prices. Companies must anticipate competitor prices changes and prepare the contingent responses, including maintaining or changing price or quality. The firm facing a competitor's price change must try to understand the competitor's intent and the likely duration of the change. A market leader attacked by lower price competitors can seek to better differentiate itself, introduce its own low cost competitor, or transform itself more completely. Let's talk about Airbnb. Rhode Island School of Design graduates Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia came upon the idea of making a little extra money by launching www.airbedandbreakfast.com and renting out air mattresses to attendees at the Industrial Design Conference in San Francisco. Emboldened by their success at attracting 3 different guests for the week, the two of them shortened the name of their venture to Airbnb. Then they hired a tech expert and set out to extend their couch surfing business by adding features such as escrow payments and professional photography so the potential renter properties look their best. Around the clock customer service for guests and 1 million insurance policy for hosts provided each party with valuable peace of mind. All kind of spaces were included, not just rooms, apartments, and houses, but also driveways, houses, igloos, and even castles. Airbnb applied a broker's model to generate revenue. 3% from the host and 6% to 12% from the guest, depending on the property price. Although it now operates in 190 countries and 28,000 cities, books millions of spaces annually, and has seen its valuation approach in $10 billion. It faces several significant challenges, including government intervention. Now let's talk about the phase of delivering value. Retailing includes all the activities in selling goods or services directly to final consumers for personal and non-business use. Retailers can be store retailers, non-store retailers, and retail organizations. Retailers pass through stages of growth and decline. As existing stores offer more services to remain competitive, costs and prices go up, which opens the door to new retail forms that offer merchandise and services at lower prices. The major types of retail stores are specialty stores, department stores, supermarket, convenience stores, discount stores, extreme value or hard discount store, off-price retailers, superstores, and also the catalog showrooms. Non-store retailing is growing and includes direct selling, one-to-one selling, one-to-many party selling, and multi-level network marketing. Direct marketing, which includes e-commerce and internet retailing, automatic vending, and buying services. Retail organizations achieve many economies of scale, greater purchase power, wider brand recognition, and better trained employees. The major types of corporate retailing are corporate chain stores, voluntary chains, retailer cooperatives, consumer cooperatives, franchise organizations, and merchandising conglomerates. As new retail forms have emerged, competition between them has increased. Of course, the rise of giant retailers have been matched by the decline of middle market retailers. Investment in technology has grown, and shopper marketing inside stores has become a priority. Like all marketers, retailers must prepare marketing plans that include decisions about target market, channels, product assortment and procurement, prices, services, store atmosphere, store activities and experiences, communications, and location. Wholesaling includes all the activities in selling goods or services to those who buy for resale or business use. Wholesalers can perform functions better and most cost effectively than the manufacturer can. These functions include selling and promoting, buying and assortment building, bulking, breaking, warehousing, transportation, financing, risk bearing, dissemination of market information, and provision of management services and consulting. Of course, there are four types of wholesalers: merchant wholesalers, brokers and agents, manufacturers and retailer sales branches, sales offices and purchasing offices, and also miscellaneous wholesalers such as agricultural assemblers and auction companies. Like retailers, wholesalers must decide on target markets, product assortment services, price, promotion, and place. The most successful are those who adapt their services to meet suppliers and target customers' needs. Producers of physical products and services must decide on market logistics, the best way to store and move goods and services to market destinations, and to coordinate the activities of suppliers, purchasing agents, manufacturers, marketers, channels members, and customers. Major gains in logistical efficiency have come from advances in information technology. Let's talk about the case of Coach. Do you know well, I have bought some purses of this branch. I don't know if you are familiar with them. I guess yes, but well, Coach markers a high-end line of luxury handbags, briefcases, luggages, and accessories. In its 2013 fiscal year, 10 millions, the company describes its multi-channel global distribution model as follows. Coach products are available in image-enhancing locations globally, wherever our consumer chooses to shop, including retail stores and factory outlets, directly operated shops in shops, online, and department and specialty stores. This allows Coach to maintain a dynamic balance. As a result, they don't depend solely on the performance of a single channel or geographic area. The North America segment consists of direct-to-consumer and indirect channels and includes sales to consumers through 351 company-operated retail stores, including internet, and sales to wholesale customers and distributors. Coach began as a U.S. wholesaler and still sells to 1,000 U.S. department store locations. For example, Macy's, and also Bloomingdale's, Dillard's, Nordstrom, Saks Fifth Avenue, and Lord Taylor. Here in Mexico, you can find them in Liverpool. I'm not sure if in Sears, but in Palacio del Hierro you can find them too. Well, they often have a tight controlled shop within a shop, as well as on some of those retailers' websites. This segment represented approximately 69% of the company's total net sales in fiscal 2013. The international segment sells to consumers online and through company-operated stores in Japan and mainland China, Hong Kong, Macau, Singapore, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Korea, and to wholesale customers and distributors. Coach also has a store-in-store offerings in Japan and China inside major department stores. The international segment represents approximately 31% of total net sales for the fiscal year 2013. Finally, Coach has licensing relations with Movado, for a company of watches, Jimlar for footwear, and Markham eyewear. These licensed products are sometimes sold in other channels such as jewelry stores, high-end shoe stores, and optical retailers as Coach continues to broaden its meaning from a bag brand to a whole lifestyle brand. Okay, then the last phase is communicating value. Okay, its direct marketing is an interactive marketing system, and it uses one or more media to effect a measurable response or the transaction at any location. Direct marketing, especially electronic marketing, is showing explosive growth. Direct marketers can campaigns by deciding on objectives, target markets and prospects, offers and prices. Next, they test and establish measures to determine the campaign's success. Major channels for direct marketing include face-to-face selling, direct mail, catalog marketing, telemarketing, interactive TV, kiosks, websites, and mobile devices. Customer relationship management often requires building a customer database and data mining to detect trends, segments, and individual needs. A number of significant risks also exist, so marketers must proceed truthfully. What are the pros and the cons of database marketing? We have to find out. Salespeople serves companies links to its customers. The sales representative is the company to many of its customers. Okay, it means that when you talk to a person who is the sales representative of the company, you think that he is the company. Okay, and then this representative brings back to the company as much information needed about the customer. So designing the sales force requires choosing objectives, strategies, structure, size, and compensation. Objectives may include prospecting, targeting, communicating, selling, servicing, information gathering, and allocating. Selecting a strategy requires choosing the most effective mix of selling approaches. Structuring the sales force entails dividing territories by geography, products of market, or maybe a combination of them. To estimate how large the sales force needs to be, the firm has to estimate the total workload and how many sales hours, and of course then salespeople, will be needed. Compensating representatives requires identifying the compensating the representatives requires identifying the types of salaries, the commissions, bonuses, expenses accounts, and benefits to give, and how much weight customer satisfaction should have in determining total compensations. Okay, so we have 5 steps in managing the sales force. First, recruiting and selecting sales representatives. 2, training the representatives in sales techniques and in the company's products, policies, and customer satisfaction orientation. The third one is supervising the sales force and helping the representatives to use their time efficiently. The fourth one is motivating the sales force and balancing quotas, monetary rewards, and supplementary motivators. And finally, evaluating individual and group sales performance. Then, effective salespeople are trained in methods of analysis and customer management, as well as the art of sales professionalism. No single approach works best in all circumstances because most of trainers agree that selling has 6 steps: prospecting and qualifying customers, pre-approach, presentation, and demonstration, overcoming objections, closing, and follow-up and maintenance. Let's talk about the case of Ocean Spray. You know, this is the juices company. And well, facing stiff competition, adverse consumer trends, and nearly a decade of declining sales, Ocean Spray COO Ken Romancy and Arnold Worldwide decided to reintroduce the cranberry as a surprising versatile little fruit that supplies modern-day benefits through a true 360-degree campaign that used all facets of marketing communications to reach consumers in a variety of settings. The intent was to support the full range of products, cranberry sauce, fruit juices, and dried cranberries in different forms, and leverage the fact that the brand was born with the cranberry box and remained there still. The agency decided to tell an authentic, honest, and perhaps surprising story dubbed straight from the box. The campaign was designed to also reinforce two key brand benefits. The Ocean Spray products tasted good and are good for you. Okay, miniature bugs were brought to Manhattan and featured on an NBC Today morning segment. A box across American tour brought the experience to Los Angeles and Chicago television, and print advertising featured two growers, depicted by actors, of course, standing waist deep in a bog and talking, often humorously, about what they did. The campaign also included a website, in-store displays, and events for consumers and for members of the growers cooperative itself. Product innovation was crucial too. New flavor blends were introduced along with a line of 100% juices, diet and light versions, and increasing sweetened dried cranberries. Since then, famed chef Ming Tsai appeared in a pop-up restaurant in New York's Rockefeller Center, and a leap year promotion urged consumers to leap to cravings. The campaign hit the mark, lifting sales an average of 10% in its first 5 years, continued declining in the fruit juice category. So after they have been losing, they started to win again. Value chain in management. We will talk about value chain as a tool for identifying ways to create more customer value. Every firm is a synthesis of activities performed to design, produce, market, deliver, and support its product. Non-strategically relevant activities, primary and for support activities, create value and cost in a specific business. Primary activities are inbound logistics or bringing materials to the business, operations or converting materials into final products, outbound logistics or shipping out final products, marketing, which includes sales and service. The specialized departments handle the support activities are procurement, technology development, human resource management, and firm infrastructure. Infrastructure covers the cost of general management, planning, finance, accounting, legal, and government affairs. The firm starts to examine its cost and performance in each value creating activity, benchmarking against competitors, and look for ways to improve. Managers can identify the best of class practices of the world's best companies by consulting customers, suppliers, distributors, financial analysts, trade associations, and the media to see who seems to be doing the best job. Even the best companies can benchmark against other industries if necessary to improve their performance. For example, GE has been marched against Procter & Gamble or P&G, as well as developing its sound best practices. The firm's success depends not only on how well each department performs its works, but also on how well the company coordinates departmental activities to conduct businesses. The processes may include the market sensing process, that gathering and acting upon information about the market, the new offering realization process, researching, developing, and launching new high quality offerings quickly and within the budget. The customer acquisition process that defines target markets and prospect for new customers. The customer relationship management process that consists in building deeper understanding, relationships, and offerings to individual customers. The fulfillment management process, receiving and approving orders, shipping goods on time, and collect payment. Struct companies are engineering their workflows and building cross-functional teams to be responsible for each process. For establish a cross-functional team to help reduce water usage per vehicle 30%. AT&T, LexisNexis, and Pratt & Whitney have reorganized their employees into cross-functional teams. Cross-functional teams operate in non-profit and governmental organizations as well. A firm also needs to look for competitive advantages beyond its sound operations in the value chains of suppliers, distributors, and customers. Many companies today have partnered with specific suppliers and distributors to create a superior value delivery network that we also call supply chain. Activity 1. Join in teams from 4 to 5 members, read provided cases, and develop the answers to each question. First, it's going to be the cover, the second, the index, then the introduction. In the introduction, you have to explain what is this work about. Imagine that you are explaining your friend what is this work about because he has no clue of what you're talking about. It will worth 1 point. Then you will have to read the case creating value of eBay, and in minimum 1 page you will have to answer. First, why was eBay succeeded as an outline auction marketplace while so many others have failed? What's the difference? Why they were successful? And the second question is evaluate eBay's fee structure. Is it optimal or could it be improved? Why and how? And the third question is discuss Donahue's vision for eBay. Is moving away from online auction sustainable for the company? And justify your answer, okay? These questions have to be answered in at least 1 page. The next one is you have to read the delivering value case of Sarah. And again, in minimum 1 page, you have to answer if will Sarah's model work for other retailers? Why or why not? And what can Sarah do to ensure successful growth around the world while maintaining the same level of speed and instant fashion? And this is going to worth 2 points. And the third question is going to, well, the third part to read is communicating value, the case of Victoria's Secret. And again, in minimum 1 page, you have to develop why has Victoria's Secret been so successful? How does the company reach its target audience? What do you think are Victoria's Secret's biggest challenges? And what's next for Victoria's Secret? how does the company grow? And this is going to work again to 2 points. And finally, you will have to write your individual conclusions where you explain what did you learn when you were doing this work and minimum half a page per conclusion, okay, per member of the team. Supply chain. Let's talk about the supply chain concept. The perception that purchasing is no longer a routine administrative ordering activity is now widely, if not universally, held. The expression supply chain has come into prominence, although there is competing terminology such as the expression value stream, preferred by the promoters of lean manufacturing. Pipeline management is another expression with a comparable meaning. As it also network sourcing. Not only is there competing terminology, there are also alternative definitions of the term supply chain itself. Some regarding it is another name for the procurement cycle, others linking it to the terms of logistics, etc. What supply chain management is about is the linkage of the immediate seller-buyer relationship into a longer series of events. A company's supplier have their own suppliers, and often our direct customers are not the ultimate customers. Supply chain management sees the various buyers and sellers as being part of a continuum and recognizes the benefit to be derived from attempting to take a strategic and integrated view of the chain, rather than focusing on the individual links and thereby sub-optimizing. In other words, the focus of material attention is not just the individual company or organization, but the interaction between the series of organizations that constitute the chain. It might be helped to visualize the firms in the chain and the flows of goods, of services, and the information passing between them as links. If you see the image on the slide, it shows some of the major steps in the production of automobile component in the form of a steel pressing. Iron ore is mined and converted into steel, which is rolled into strip form. The component is pressed from the strip and then it is assembled, with others to form the automobile. In practice, that will almost certainly that there are much more steps. For example, the steel component will rather be likely to become part of a sub-assembly before being incorporated to the car. As work proceeds, value is added to the material. For the purpose of this illustration, value is represented as the amount that the next customer in the chain from iron mine to driver pays for the material, less any cost of process of conversion. The various conversion of production operations begin with a stock of incoming materials and end with inventories of goods really ready for the next operation. Transportation leaks the programs. The diagram shows that the cost is being added during storage and movement, but not value, and that if storage and movement can be minimized, value increases more steeply. In addition to the costs which are apparent between the main stages, there are also, of course, interorganizational costs within the main stages. For example, if the steelmaker can become more efficient through the reduction of wastes associated with the steelmaking process, then the value added slope will be a steeper one for that part of the chain. Value will be added more quickly. Supply chain goals or objectives. One supply chain manager's goals may be to save money, reduce inventory, and improve cash flow. And others may be to decrease supplier defect rates, improve on-time supply delivery, and increase fill rate. In these cases, each supply chain manager, has synergistic goals, not really conflict. But it's not always optimal if all supply chain goals are synergistic. Supply chain's impacts on the overall performance of an organization is multifaceted. For an organization to succeed, it may be actually necessary to have supply chain goals that seems to compete with one another. Here are some examples. Cost saving versus quality. Cost saving seems like a logical supply chain goal. There are a multitude of cost-saving techniques, but some are counterproductive. One technique would be to seek out and procure lower-priced products and services without regard of quality. By doing so, your unit price may decrease, but your organization may then face an onslaught of returns due to defects, angry customers, and/or lost market share. It's easy to see how cost-saving goals and quality goals can appear to conflict. However, you should welcome the challenge to drive improvement in both areas. Another one is fill rate versus average inventory value. Fill rate is your organization's percentage of account or orders that are fulfilled on time. Like achieving cost savings, there are a multitude of techniques to improve fill rate, some more desirable than others. You could increase inventory to improve fill rate, but that can be a costly solution compared to other options like improving supply and performance. So ideally, you want to improve fill rate while also decreasing inventory and its costs. And finally, we have to say that top-performing supply chains are finding all the ways to succeed, despite seemingly conflicting goals. They don't totally sacrifice progress towards one goal to reach another. Balanced supply chain goals can lead to the most sustainable results for organizations. After all we have talked about, we need to talk also about the supply chain importance for any business, right? Today, more than ever before, supply chain management has become an integral part of business, and it's essential to any company's success and customer satisfaction. Supply chain management has the power to boost customer service, reduce operating costs, and improve the financial standing of a company. But how does it work? First, improve customer service. Customers expect to receive the correct product mix and quantity to be delivered on time. For example, if you buy 5 books from Amazon and only two of the actual titles arrive, one is an entirely different book and two are missing, the customer will lose faith in Amazon, prompting them to leave a bad review and hinder them from returning to the platform. Products need to be on hand in the right location too. Customer satisfaction is tarnished if your car breaks, parts fail, and the auto repair shop is delayed in making the repairs because parts are not available in-house. Other is that follow-up support after a sale must be done quickly. When an appliance store sells a furnace with a warranty and it breaks down, when the temperatures are below freezing, it's a great possibility that the customer will be irate if the heating unit cannot be fixed immediately. Okay? Other way that supply chain helps is reducing operating costs. First, decreases purchasing cost. Retailers depend on supply chains to quickly distribute costly products to avoid sitting on expensive inventories. We also decrease production cost because any delay in production can cost a company tens of thousands of dollars. This factor makes supply chain management even more important. Reliable delivery of materials to assembly plants avoids any costly delays in manufacturing. And finally, we have that it decreases the total supply chain cost. Wholesale manufacturers and retailer suppliers depend on proficient supply chain management to design a network that meets customer service goals. This gives business a competitive edge in the marketplace. And finally, and this is like a consequence of the previous two, improves financial position. Why? Because it inserts profit leverage. Businesses value supply chain managers help control and decrease supply chain expenditures. Also, well, we decrease fixed assets because decreasing the use of large fixed assets such as plants, warehouses, and transportation vehicles essentially reduce the costs, right? And finally, increases cash flow because firms appreciate the added value supply chain management contributes for the speed of productive flows to customers. The sooner, the better. Decision phases in supply chain. Successful supply chain management requires many decisions relating to the flow of information, product, and funds. These decisions fall into three categories or phases, depending on the frequency of each decision and the time frame over which a decision faces an impact. The first one is supply chain strategy or design. During this phase, a company decides how to structure the supply chain over the next several years. It decides what the chain configurations will be, how resources will be allocated, and what processes each stage will perform. Strategic decisions made by companies include the location and capacities of production and warehousing facilities, the products to be manufactured or stored at various locations, the modes of transportation to be made available along different shipping legs, and the type of information system to be utilized. A firm must ensure that the supply chain configuration supports its strategy objectives during the phase. Dell's decisions regarding the location and capacity of its manufacturing facilities, warehouses, and supply sources are all supply chain design or strategic decisions. Supply chain design decisions are typically made from the long term, a matter of years, and are very expensive to alter or short notice. Consequently, when companies make the decisions, they must take into account uncertainty in anticipated market conditions over the next few years. The next phase is supply chain planning. For decisions made during this phase, the time frame considered is a quarter to year. Therefore, the supply chain's configuration determining the strategic phase is fixed. This configuration establishes constraints within which planning must be done. Companies start the planning phase with a forecast for the coming year or a comparable time frame of different demand in different markets. Planning includes decisions regarding which markets will be supplied from which locations, the subcontracting of manufacturing, the inventory policies to be followed, and the timing and size of marketing promotions. Dell's decisions regarding markets a given production facility will supply and target production quantities at different locations are classified as a planning decision. Planning establishes parameters within which a supply chain will function over a specific period of time. In this planning phase, companies must include uncertainty in demand, exchange rate, and competition over this time horizon in their decisions. Given a shorter time horizon and better forecast than at the design phase, companies in the planning phase try to incorporate any flexibility built into the supply chain in the design phase and exploit it to optimize performance. As a result of the planning phase, companies define a set of operating policies that govern short-term operations. And the last phase is the supply chain operation itself. The time horizon where is weekly or daily. During this phase, companies make decisions regarding individual customer orders. At the operational level, supply chain configuration is considered fixed and planning policies are already defined. The goal of supply chain operation is to handle incoming customer orders in the best possible manner. During this phase, firms allocate inventory or production to individual orders, set a date that an order is to be filled, generate pick lists at the warehouse, allocate an order to a particular shipping mode and shipment, set delivery schedules of trucks, and place replenishment orders. Because operational decisions are being made in the short term, minutes, hours, or days, there is less uncertainty about demand information. Given the constraints established by the configuration and planning policies, the goal during the operation phase is to exploit the reduction of uncertainty and optimize performance. The design, planning, and operation of a supply chain have a strong impact on overall profitability and success. Continuing with the example of Dell Computer, in the early 90s, Dell management began to focus on improving the design, planning, and operation of the supply chain, with the result of significantly improved performance. Both profitability and the stock price have soared, and Dell stock has had outstanding returns over this period. What does it mean? They are making more money. After all we have talked about, what are the differences between value chain and supply chain? In the table that you can see on your screen, there is a comparative of demand chain, value chain, and supply chain. Their fundamental concepts and ultimate goals are not distinctively different in that all these concepts are customer-centric and stress the importance of coordinating linkage between business activities to the firm competitiveness. Therefore, these three terms can be regarded as synonyms. But to put it simple, the supply chain originates at the sources of supply and flows toward the customer, whereas the demand chain flows backward from the customer and ends up with the enterprise. The value chain is created when the supply chain is in synchrony with the demand chain. As you can see, the role in demand planning, the demand chain is the demand creation, the value chain is the performance, and the supply chain is the fulfillment of the demand. What is the key strategy for demand chain? Is product strategy, of course. Value chain is financial, and the supply chain is the channel strategy. And you can see that the primary activities for a demand chain is the new product development, the market research, sales and promotions, and forecasting. For the value chain is cost accounting, pricing, revenue management, capital investment, and value-added services. And in the supply chain, we have procurement, manufacturing, logistics, and payments. And finally, the key stakeholders for demand chain are the end customers. For the value chain are the shareholders, and for the supply chain are the supply chain partners. Supply chain performance metrics. Given the importance of supply chain performance to business success, you would like to know how well your organization and its supply chain partners are performing in comparison to your competitors' supply chain performance. Once you discover that your organization and its supply chain partners' supply chain performance are lagging behind your competitors, you would like to know what the sources of the lagging supply chain performance are and how you can improve your organization and its partners' supply chain performance. In order to answer these critical questions, you should develop a yardstick that can determine both the effectiveness and the efficiency of the organization, its supply chain partners, and its competitors. To have more meaningful measures of the supply chain performance, such a yardstick should have the following traits. First, multidimensional, because the supply chain spans many different boundaries of the business functions and organizations. Its performance metric has to cover more than one aspect of business performance. For example, the company's effort to reduce inventory carrying cost will increase the possibility of stockouts, back orders, and thus lower the order refill rate. That is to say, the use of traditional single-dimensional measures such as inventory carrying cost may be irrelevant to the measurement of supply chain performance. Then, specific. Although the supply chain performance measure should reflect a big picture performance of a cross-functional and cross-organizational integrated activities, it should be specific enough to pinpoint exactly what you're measuring. For example, a broadly defined traditional measure such as capacity utilization, logistics productivity, and information accuracy may create confusion among the different organizations and their different units. It has also need to be universal. A performance measure that can only be used for a particular company or industry will not be appropriate for meaningful supply chain performance metric. For example, a traditional manufacturing measure such as the machine idle time, the number of defects, and the cost per inspection may not be a meaningful supply chain performance metrics because it cannot be universal across the entire supply chain, which can include non-manufacturing industry sectors as the supply chain partners. It has to be repeatable because supply chain performance has to be monitored constantly over time. A one-time measure will not be appropriate for measuring the supply chain performance. For example, the size of the organization or the size of a particular facility, such as a warehouse and a truck terminal, at a certain point of time cannot be proper supply chain performance metric. It has to be also quantifiable. Some customer service measures, such as level of customer satisfaction and the extent of customer loyalty, are hard to identify. However, those measures should be translated into numerical scales to provide a clear yardstick for objectively evaluating the comparative performance of a particular supply chain against others. Therefore, metrics that can be expressed in numerical terms, percentage, time, ratio, are more useful for measuring supply chain performance and for measuring everything. Trustable. Performance measures that are based on confidential information, proprietary information, or untraceable data may not be appropriate for measuring supply chain performance. If the necessary performance data is hard to come by, metrics based on such data will be difficult to implement and therefore will be less meaningful. Unfortunately, there has no evidence to date that supply chain performance metrics that satisfy the preceding traits actually exist. Most than anything else because the complexity involved in measuring performance across the entire supply chain. In most instances, metrics that manage and academics refer to as supply chain performance metrics are limited. They're like single dimensional or function specific measures. And just a few exceptions are considered cross functional measures. But still, they are kind of non specifics. In this slide, we can see the commonly used supply chain performance metrics. As we were saying previously, they are kind of single dimensional. They are function specific measures, but they are the most common. Like for example, for customer service, we find order fill rate, back orders, customer defection rate, frequency of complaints, disputes, other accuracies, order cycle time, product return rate. For marketing, demand forecasting accuracy, time to market, market share, sales revenue, revenue growth. As you can see, all of them are really specific for a function, okay? But they are not related to others, okay? And in this case, when you use single dimensional metrics, you are running risks because maybe one of your objectives can affect another one from other area. Let's see the next slide. In this case, we can see a supply chain performance metric with a cross-functional emphasis. If you see, for example, if you want to measure the performance, for example, for supply chain delivery reliability, the performance of the supply chain in delivering the correct product to the correct place at the correct time, in the correct condition, in the correct quantity, with the correct documentation to the correct customers, we'll need maybe to implement three performance metrics like delivery performance, that is the measure to fulfill the customer demand according to the deadline fixed, the fill rates or line item fill rates, that it's the percentage of customer orders satisfied from inventory at hand, and the third one could be perfect order fulfillment, that is the percentage of orders delivered on time and in full without quality failures or missings, and all the documentation required. Okay, this is an example. If you see, you are using different metrics for measuring the reliability in deliveries, right? And you can do the same with responsiveness, with flexibility, with supply chain cost, the asset management efficiency. Okay, here you can see what you can do. But remember, these are examples that are made for books, and in real life it's different because you really need to find out what is what you need to measure, what is the perfect metric for the development in your company. Yeah, use this as a reference, but it doesn't mean that you cannot mix them between them. Supply chain metrics structure. Before electing any supply chain metric, we need to know the key drivers. First, we have the facilities, that are the actual physical locations in the supply chain network where the product is stored, assembled, or manufactured. Decisions regarding the role, location, capacity, and flexibility of facilities have a significant impact on the performance of the chain. Inventory. It covers all raw materials, work in process, and finished goods within the supply chain. Changing inventory policies can drastically alter your efficiency and responsiveness. Transport. It involves moving inventory from one point to another in the supply chain. Transportation options have a major impact on the chain responsiveness and efficiency. Information. It consists of data and analysis related to facilities, inventory, transportation, cost, prices, and customers through the supply chain. It is potentially the largest performance guideline in the chain, as it directly affects each of the other guidelines. Information gives the administration the opportunity to make chains more responsive and efficient. Next one is procurement. Procurement decisions affect both the responsiveness and efficiency of the chain. It is a decision on who will carry out a specific activity in the supply chain, such as production, storage, transport, or information management, regarding the supply of sources. And finally, we have the price that determines how much an organization will charge for the goods and services, and it makes it available in the supply chain. It affects, of course, the behavior of the buyer, thus influencing the performance of the chain. Supply chain key performance indicators. Key performance indicators can be categorized in a number of different ways. They can be a measure of input, that is time, labor, and cost, or output, throughput, production, profit, and radio, efficiency, productivity. In practice, an effective measurement system will cover all of the major operational areas within a business. A typical categorization may be financial key performance indicators, that is the return on investment, ROI, return on capital employed, ROAS, and stock turn. For customer key performance indicators, new customers, lost customers, on time in full, deliveries. Some sales KPIs are total volume, total sales, sales per customers. For process, it could be productivity and efficiency. For people, we talk about labor turnover, training, average length of service, etc. And for suppliers, we can also consider on-time in full deliveries and cost per piece. But it's going to be easier if we see an example. The blue table is the way all metrics are currently measured. Some by time, some by percentage, but how do we know if the entire pot is bad or good? Or what is the trend? Okay, so for example, we have supplier on time in full. First week, they accomplished 90%. Second, 85%. Third, 79%. Fourth is 68%. Okay, it's easy that we see that it's not the best performance, right? But then we have the supplier presentation and we have 85, 85, 81, 86, more or less, right? Aborted calls, 10%, 9%, 7, 9, 5. The forecast accuracy stays equal. The peak errors, the first week where they were having 8 errors, then 6, then 14, then 5. And then we have also the customers on time and full that we accomplished because of these problems. And we have 96, 97, 90, 82, and also the credit notes that we have to issue that go from 183 to 66, and the returns that we have to do from 77 to 126. So this is not giving us a real idea of how we are working, okay? So let's go to the evergreen table where you can see that we have defined some values, some reference values, where you see, for example, for the supplier on time in full, if it's less than 60, we evaluate with 0. From 60 to 64, we evaluate with 1, and so on. Again, for the supplier presentation, it's very similar, but for example, for aborted calls, our reference values are changing. The forecast accuracy is similar to the ODIF and the supplier presentation, but then again, peak errors we are making a different metric, right? We are changing the reference value because it will depend on the needs of your customers. Then we have also the customer ODIF that it's going to be very similar to supplier ODIF because it's going to be linked, right? Then we have a reference value for credit notes and returns that it's going to be again different. Then once that we have these reference values, we will translate this information into the purple table where we are saying, okay, for supplier audit, we have 8752. That's for supplier presentation, 7767. And at the end, we have the total score of 53, 57, 48, and 49. Right? If you see, we are using 8 metrics. So the best score possible would be 80. So 53 between 80, we have a score of 66%. Then 57, it's going to give us 71%. 48 is going to give us 60%. And finally, 49 is going to give us 61%. So we have the average photo of the total metrics that we are considering. So obviously, the best week and the reference week that we will have to do is second week. Why? Because it was the one with the best results, and we have to verify why this week was better than the others and why the third week and the fourth week were so low. You have got the numbers, now you have to present them, and you have to do it management proof. Remember that management will be always very busy and they want to see simple numbers and cold numbers, okay? So you can present each one individually or you can present the concentration of them. In this case, we do need to verify why the second week was better and why week 4 was worse, or week 3, right? If you see, week 3 and 4 were worst. So we can do the necessary adjustments so that we can create a positive trend. A good custom performance monitoring system will cover all the major elements of a business operation, but aside from the importance of the accuracy of the data, it will be only effective if it's presented in a usable and clear format. A number of companies have developed very visual output to achieve this. Activity 2. Joining teams from 4 to 5 members, ideally the team that you have worked at before. Select product prototype, you have to invent something, and develop. First, the cover, second, the index, three, the introduction, what is this work about, as if you are explaining to your friend what is it about, because he doesn't have any clue. And then you will have to describe the value chain of your product, how you create, deliver, and communicate value. Something similar to what we have done in first activity, but now it will be focused on your product. Then you will have to create your supply chain goals and, of course, the KPIs of your supply chain that will be obviously based in your supply chain goals. And finally, your individual conclusions. Okay, for the introduction, it's going to be 1 point, the value chain of your product 2 points, 2 more points for creating your supply chain goals, and 2 for your KPIs, and your individual conclusion will worth 3 points. Decision on supply chain design. Supply chain decisions classification. In the supply chain, one of its common threads is the facilities. In this common thread, decisions such as number of facilities, type of facilities like warehouses, plants, distribution centers, or stores, the location of the facilities, and the facilities capacity must be taken. If we want a greater response capacity, we must have a greater number of facilities with a high capacity and a high level of flexibility. To maintain efficiency in the supply chain, it is recommended to operate in a few centralized facilities. To make decisions regarding facilities, we have to answer some questions. In the case of the role of facilities, we need to know what role should each facility play, what processes are carried out in each facility. About the location of facilities, we need to reply, where should they be located? Then, for capacity allocation is how much capacity should be allocated to each facility. And finally, for the market allocation and supply, we need to respond these very important questions that what markets should each facility serve and what sources of supply should feed each one. Supply chain decision factors. Before making any decision, we need to consider all involved factors. In supply chain case, we need to consider the next 6 ones. First, strategic factors. Competitive strategy has a significant impact on decisions about network design within the supply chain. We have, for example, facilities abroad or offshore. A facility abroad plays the role of being a source of low-cost supply for markets located outside the country where it is originally located. Then we have facilities in origin. The main objective of the supply facility is also low cost, but its strategic role is broader than that of a facility abroad. Then we have the server facilities. Their objective is to supply the market where it is located. And then we have the contributing facilities that serve the market where it is located, but also assumes responsibility for product customization, process improvement, product modifications, or product development. Then we have advanced facilities that it's primarily located to gain access to knowledge or skills that may exist within a certain region. And we also have the LINM facilities that creates new products, processes, and technologies for the entire network. The second factor is the technological one. The characteristics of the available production technologies have a significant impact on the network design decisions. If the production technology shows significant economies of scale, the most efficient is to have few high-capacity facilities. The third factor are the macroeconomic factors. They include taxes, tariffs, foreign exchange rate, and other economic factors that do not depend on the internal control of each company. As global trade has increased, economic factors have had a significant influence on the success or failure of supply chain networks. We have, for example, tariffs that are the rates that must be paid when the products or equipment pass through international, state, or municipal borders. Then we have tax incentives. They are reductions in tariffs or taxes that countries, states, and municipalities frequently offer to encourage companies to locate their facilities in specific areas. Then, the exchange rates. Their fluctuations are common and they have a significant impact on the bottom line of any supply chain serving global markets. And we also have demand risks that companies must also take in account fluctuations in demand caused by the changing economies of different countries. Okay, the fourth factor is the political one. Companies prefer to locate facilities in politically stable countries where the rules of trade and the ownership are well defined. The fifth factor is the infrastructure. The availability of a good infrastructure is a very important prerequisite for locating a facility in a specific area. Poor infrastructure adds to the cost of doing business from a given location. And the last factor we have is the competitive one. Companies must consider the strategy, size, and location of competitors when designing their supply chain network. A critical decision they must make is whether to locate their facilities near competitors or away from them. Phases of supply chain design. Phases of supply chain design and its process. The objective when designing the supply chain network is to maximize the company's profits while meeting customers' needs in terms of demands and responsiveness. So we have to follow next phases to achieve it. Phase 1. Define the strategy and design of the supply chain. This first phase begins with a clear definition of the company's competitive strategy, as the set of customers needs the chain seeks to satisfy. Phase 2. Define the local of the facilities. It begins with a forecast of demand by country. Such a forecast should include a measurement of the size of demand, as well as a determination of whether customer requirements are homogeneous or vary across countries. Phase 3. Select a group of potentially desirable sites. Select a group of potentially desirable sites within each region to locate the facilities based on an analysis of infrastructure availability to support the desired production methodologies. And finally, Phase 4, location options. It refers to select the precise location and capacity allocation for each facility.